Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf. Online at sunburymotors.com. Coming up, Glenn Macnow tomorrow from the Eagles Radio Network. Also tomorrow, Penn State basketball coach Micah Shrewsbury. And we're 2 weeks away from the Coach's Show with James Franklin as the Penn State football season is on the horizon. But now we're going to get an opportunity in a few moments to talk with the legendary Mike Lange. But there's only one way to lead into Mike, and that is with our play-by-play calls of the day.
It's a hockey night in Pittsburgh. Guerin's got the puck to Crosby. Rich shot. He shoots and scores. Oh, get in the fast lane, Grandma. The bingo game is ready to roll.
The day that Mike Lange entered this profession, the profession got richer. The day that Mike Lange exits the profession gets poorer. With that, we bring in the legendary Mike Lange. Mike, welcome. It's always a pleasure.
It's my pleasure, Steve. I've enjoyed the talks we've had, and I hope we can still continue along the way because I enjoy the show. I really do.
No, and we will absolutely continue to have you back. Mike, timing is everything in life, so let's start at least at the end here. What was right about the timing for you to say, all right, it's time now?
Well, I ran out of phrases, so I had to.
That's the best answer I've heard ever.
No, I think as many people are somewhat aware, I've been cutting back as far as the travel is concerned and doing games, the last couple of years. And we've gotten to the point now with, especially with the COVID situation and everything involved, that I just thought if I can get to this year, the 2021, and do a game, I'd have 50 years of doing pro hockey. Started with a stint in 1971 with the Phoenix Roadrunners in the Western League, and it would make 50 years, and I was able to accomplish that. And Steve Blass, who's a dear friend, and I did some baseball with him in the 80s, had just retired the year before, and we still stay so close. And being my hero, I decided to follow his footsteps. I just think it was the right time for me. We had so much success here over the years, and I just enjoyed everything I did with it. But I think it's time for a young guy to get his feet wet, and Josh Getzoff certainly will be doing that with Phil Bork. And I think we're in good hands, and I hope they can get a total of 50 years in themselves to enjoy what I was able to do here from the city of Pittsburgh.
Mike, along the way when you get into this, mentors and people that either open doors for you in terms of their style or professionally or help you out or listen to what you're doing means so much. I mean, everyone knows, I've told everybody here, that Gil Santos, who for years did the Patriots, did Penn State for a few years, and I was the third guy. I learned so much just sitting there. Along the way, who is that kind of person for you? I mean, you have to be Mike Lange, but who is that person for you?
Well, I go back to really when I became really enthralled and was determined to be a broadcaster, and I was 9 years old. I just had it in my blood. That's what I wanted to do. Baseball was my choice at that time, and the San Francisco Giants had just moved west from New York, and listening to their broadcast and the great voice of Vince Scully when they arrived and became a part of the West Coast, just piqued my interest so much. Another guy there who really probably had as much influence as anything would be Bill King, who did the San Francisco Warriors and used a great phrase in the Raiders of the American Football League, and used a phrase, "Holy Toledo," and every time he did that, I just had chills go down my back in the moment of the game. And I said to myself even then, I said, I'm going to try and do some phrases. I want to do something if I get into it. And that's where it was kind of born. And then my first job, as it turned out, turned out to be in Phoenix, Arizona. and I couldn't have been a better place for me to start because Al McCoy, who is still the most tenured broadcaster in the NBA, was there doing the hockey games, and I ended up actually getting a job working with him for the last half of the season in '71, and then he went to the Phoenix Suns, and when he did, I was able to move in and become a play-by-play broadcaster. He taught me so much about broadcasting, particularly, you have to realize, and you and I are a little fortunate in getting our feet wet and so much the radio side of it, but that's all there was at that time, radio. Mm-hmm. So you had to be pretty descriptive and be able to use your craft to convey what was going on. And so he taught me so much about how to do that and made me a better broadcaster. And then I was able to work my way. I thought I was going to go to San Diego my whole life. Got a job there in '73 doing hockey there with the Western Hockey League. And I thought that I would be there hopefully for baseball, too, to be a greedy guy and do both sports. Right. But it didn't turn out that way. The World Hockey moved in, and that league went defunct, and I ended up trying to get a job, and I ended up in Pittsburgh. So it was a different trip for a guy that was a native Californian, 5 generation. Everybody's back home still. I was the only one that ended up taking the covered wagon and going the other way.
So what was it? What kind of adjustment was it? Now, you're in the NHL, so you're one of the few that are in the NHL back in the 70s. I mean, there's only, as you and I know, a limited number of jobs.
Yep.
What kind of adjustment was it for a Sacramento guy to then suddenly get to Pittsburgh?
Well, it's interesting you say that, and I think you could probably relate to at times on major sports that you eventually moved up the ladder and called important games. Now, that was the biggest jump for me. I had a goal to be in the major leagues. Now, it didn't necessarily mean it was going to be hockey by the time I was 26. Well, I accomplished that, but the first game, obviously, was on KDKA radio, 50,000-watt clear channel. You're aware of that. Yeah. And you're going by yourself, and I'm going to the Met Center in Bloomington, Minnesota, and I'm all by myself except for an engineer, which we never had, in the minor leagues. And I settle in, and I'm nervous as can be, and I get the job, and I start working the game, and it's going fairly well. And all of a sudden, it became a little smoother. We win the game, which probably was a blessing for me because I was able to kind of feel more comfortable. And then when it was done, I went back to the hotel, and I sat down and said, it really wasn't that much different from where I was. And with that attitude, I moved in, and it became a lot more comfortable. And I built from there. We all do. We learn from experience, and built it into something and moved it forward and added a couple of phrases. And then the fans started responding crazily and sending me things and wanting to know about, can I use this phrase and that phrase? And so it kind of built from there as far as the relationship with fans. So that's where it all started. And hopefully they had a good journey with me, and they know, the fans do, and everybody that listened over the years, how much fun I had. And I hope they had the same amount of fun, and they were smiling at the time.
Oh, believe me, they were. All of us. Everybody. Early in your tenure, though, the Penguins as a franchise were not the most stable of groups and organizations. How tough was it to always hear the rumors about whether they were staying in Pittsburgh or not?
That's amazing, really. It's a good question because most people would, I'll give you just a quick example. The first year I was here, I worked 1 year, and at the end of May of that year, Jack Button, who was the general manager, brought us into the Igloo Club, the private club, and he said, as of tomorrow, everybody, you're all unemployed. And well, what do you mean? We're all unemployed. The team had gone bankrupt. And so that opened, the scramble was on. I ended up going back to San Diego for 1 year, and then the guy that replaced me, Gary Morrell, left after 1 year, and I came back and have been here ever since. But once I came back, I just felt such a feel back to the city and want to succeed and keep it going. So it was kind of an impetus for me to say, okay, we'll show you what we can do. And those years, the Steelers, you got to realize, it just won a Super Bowl. They won 4. The Pirates won in '79, and Pitt won a national championship in 1976. So we were the blue and white down at the bottom of the totem pole. So it gave me another little bit of incentive to want to try and move up the ladder and make it a major sport in the city of Pittsburgh. And it was slow, grinding, frustrating, no question, but it was all worthwhile, especially with the arrival of number 66, Mario Lemieux, who really gave the team the kick in the pants, if you will, to get over that edge and become a better hockey club and go on to the success that they've had. So it was fun for me. I learned very quickly on. There's another team on the other side, and they've got a lot of good stars. They got good people. The Canadians, a lot of so I would build them up. You got to come and see these guys play. I mean, they're that good. So you use whatever is at your table and work with it. Try and create interest, and I think we succeeded in some way, so making people want to see the game of hockey itself.
Don't I know it? Don't I know it? So now I opened up, my first question was about timing being the end. Now, life is also timing when it comes to other events. You mentioned Mario Lemieux. That literally was going to be my next question anyway, so you anticipated me perfectly, Mike.
Yeah.
But when he gets there, okay, what, the impact he had, not just on the fan, the game, but what the kind of impact he had for you as the broadcaster, that you on an everyday basis were seeing something special?
Well, I knew he was going to be somewhat special. This is a kind of a story in the Pirates, but that first year we had training camp at Mount Lebanon High School here in Pittsburgh, and it had a small rink. The players were going 2-3 times a day in those years with 2-a-day workouts, and then we had a black and gold. No, it wasn't a black and gold game because, yes, it was, because we had changed the colors in the last Super Bowl. Anyway, within the team, they had a game at this arena. So it's in a suburb, and it doesn't hold a lot of people. And that night, there were approximately 3,000 people that came down to try and get into that building to see Mario play on that first night. On the same night, the Cubs had a chance to clinch for the National League Division Championship, and they were playing the Pirates, and at Three River Stadium, they had 3,200, I believe, for that game, if not less. So it was an amazing thing to see. And as usual, some energizing person within the township of Mount Lebanon saw all these cars and parked and people trying to get in. And they went through and put tickets on all the cars that were parked there. Which had to come back to their cars as mad as hell. But they survived it. And the rest is kind of history on what he has accomplished, not only in his early years and the Cups, but as an owner, too, and being a great part of this community and all he's dedicated his life to.
Obviously, then, of course, Sid comes in, and there's 3 more Stanley Cups, as we all know. You did a lot of time between TV, radio. In the end, what was the passion for you? Was the passion being on TV, or was the passion for you being the radio guy, in retrospect?
Well, quite honestly, I had the advantage of both, because from 82, I think, on, until we officially made a change of the radio and the TV together as simulcast. So I did those games all as simulcast, so I could probably lean more on the radio side with a little more description while I was doing the TV, but I didn't get any big complaints about it. But in 93, because of the satellites and the difference in the timing, and everything else used to be on landlines, as you well know, Steve, until the advent of the satellite, and then it became almost prohibitive because of the delays. And so I stayed on television. They decided to make a change on the TV side, Fox did, and I went back to the radio. and the blessing in disguise of it all is that I got to call every game of every playoff game and the 3 cups after that that the Penguins won. So I've done every game they've done in winning cups. Been able to broadcast it. If I'd been on the TV side only, I wouldn't have done those games for the last three championships. So it was rewarding to me, and I love the radio. And I had a great partner in Phil Bork. I love him to death. He's one of the better colormen, I think, in the NHL. Yep. He works so hard at his new job, if you will. He's become seasoned. He's become comical. He's become good with timing. He's got all the whole package right now, and he's in demand among people around here, and rightly so. So it's been fun, really, kind of moving along with him. But I do think it's time, and I put 50 years in, and I think that's a pretty good pace for anybody that's carried his bags for that long and been able to do what he just really loved to do.
Well, I know the feeling because, of course, I get to work side by side with Jack Ham. So
yep, absolutely.
I know how you feel. I mean, it's invaluable to have somebody that knowledgeable next to you, and it's invaluable to have somebody who has a great personality like that next to you. And you obviously had that with Phil, which is just, I mean, that's
they're
gold.
just, and they're good
that's
people,
gold.
and they're humble.
Yeah,
and the way this is why I love Pittsburgh so much. And I grew up in California, and I think, but your humbleness really is your greatest asset. If you can do that and be good at something, boy, it's just so much easier to communicate with people. Yep. And a lot of those Steelers in those early years, I met a lot of them, are just so down to earth and such great people. And it's easy to see why they related to each other. And it warms my heart to see the success that they've had. And I'm not surprised Jack Ham is a terrific broadcaster. And anything he would do, I think he'd be successful.
Well, I'll end the way I started. The profession became richer the day you entered it. It became poorer the day you decided not to do any more games. Mike, we will do this many more times. This won't be the last time we talk because I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything. And for all the great moments all of us listened out of your voice.
Hey, and I said that the people have given me everything back, too, with the accolades or the thought of watching and listening to games night after night. I just tell them, whatever you do, keep smiling like a butcher's dog. And it's official. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building.
We'll come back with more after this. He is a gem. He is a slice of gold.
That was amazing.
He is so special. My respect for him is just off the charts. And he is, I don't know.
Oh, my God.
I think I started it the right way, and I ended it the right way. The profession became richer the day he got into it. The profession became poorer the day he decided to exit.
And he ended it only the way he can.
Oh, my goodness, yes. And Elvis has left the building. Oh, he's just...
Oh, my.
Boy. And I always knew he loved baseball. It's interesting, who else just loves baseball, loves the Pirates, is Doc Emmerich.
That's right. He called a spring training game a couple years ago.
Yeah, oh, no.
With Greg
Brown.
With Greg Brown, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the legacy of Pittsburgh broadcasters. Now, we've talked about Philly broadcasters because obviously Bill Campbell and Harry Callis and Whitey Ashburn and Andy Musser and obviously Merrill, Gene Hart. And of course, we just had Mark Zumoff on the show. Pittsburgh's the same way. Jack Fleming, Bill Hillgrove, Myron Cope, Tunch. Okay, now then you get to Rosie Rosewell and Bob Prince and the Possum Jim Woods and Landy Fratteri and Greg Brown on baseball, Mike Lange on hockey, and now Josh Getzoff. You know what I admire about Josh? First of all, Josh calls a really good game. Getzoff does. Well, you want to know what I admire about Josh? Is Josh goes out there and is Josh. he doesn't try to be Mike. And I'm not going to get into which broadcast it is because that would be wrong for me to do on the air. But there's a college broadcast that I'll hear on Sirius once in a while where the guy on the air is trying to sound the same as the legend he replaced from many, many years ago. And I sit back and go, what are you doing? When you replace somebody, you got to be you. You can't be the other guy. You have to be you. It's like Chris Fowler goes out and he's Chris Fowler. He's not trying to be Keith Jackson or Brent Musburger. That's really important. That's what Josh does.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. Who has them all? Sunbury Motors does. Great pre-owned inventory. Fabulous sales staff that works with you. Do they want to make the sale? Of course they do. But look, they're not going to get the repeat business unless they do it right. And by doing it right, it's all about you. It's not about them. All right? And they understand that. That's what makes them great at their job, and a fabulous service department to back it all up. It's all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. There are a lot of privileges to doing this job, and one of them was in the previous half hour when we had Mike Lange on the show. It's one of the many privileges of doing the job. At the other end of the spectrum, it's the staff meetings. It's you know, but you got to take the good with the bad.
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
Sorry, man. But talking to Mike is one of the absolute privileges of the job, without question. What a gem. What a gem. What a pro's pro. And the great appreciation, you can tell people who appreciate what they do. Never take it for granted. Mike never took a second of that job for granted. Ever. Ever. So, and a young broadcaster like Matt feels the same way.
Absolutely.
And when Dave Ritchie gets a chance to talk, he appreciates it too.
Oh, my almighty!
Great to have you with us, Dave. Great to be here, too. Last time he talks till halftime. All right, so just kidding. You're killing me. Oh, my goodness. Oh, well. Look, we have to have some fun with it, right? Mike, phenomenal. Young broadcasters could take a page out of his book anytime, anywhere. Oh, and Mike offered to come back. Would love to have Mike back. Right? It can't just be one interview and goodbye. That kind of knowledge and that valuable resource of what he's seen, phenomenal. Would love to have him back. All right. James Franklin's going to meet with the media tonight after practice. They did begin practice about a half hour ago. So it's going to be right around 6:15 or so. He'll have his media get-together tonight to update where they are in practice. They'll go through this week, and then by the middle of next week, the first day of class will be Monday. And that really is now where the tapering begins, where you're transitioning from camp. You're really transitioning from camp into starting for your game week preparation, even though it's 2 weeks. So that's where this will be a critical today, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. These 5 days will be critical. And then after they get the day off on Monday, then you start to get into you're now at that point where you're finalizing after Monday. You're really finalizing who at this point probably is going to be on the scout team. and who's going to be on the travel group. Now, there'll be a couple guys on scout team that travel, too, just so you understand. That always happens. You're allowed to travel 74. So there'll be some of those guys that will be on scout team. They'll also be on the travel team. But this is where you start making that division between, okay, quote, varsity group, scout team group, and that will happen about that'll happen probably about Tuesday next week, where they'll do that, and then you start getting into your bonus prep days for your opener. So that's where you are. So these 5 days right here, you're talking about 5 critical days of camp to then start setting up what the beginning of your game week will be, even though your game week has some bonus days involved. So that's where they are. Micah Shrewsbury joins us on the show tomorrow. We're going to talk about coaches versus cancer tomorrow, and also about basketball. Penn State is number 2 in the nation in transfer points coming into the program, 4,031 career points coming into the program, which is number 2 among all transfers in the country. We'll talk to Micah about that, because the practices I watched, look, you're trying to implement your system, so there's a lot of teaching going on and not as much 5-on-5. Now, eventually, they did transition into 5-on-5, but there's a lot of teaching going on, a lot of instruction. But 4,031 points coming into the program. And we'll talk to Micah about that tomorrow. He'll be on the show. And the first show with James Franklin will be 2 weeks from tomorrow. And we'll be at the field. So that's where we are with everything. Let's see. A couple of other notes for you. Matt, what's your first game, by the way?
My first game actually will not be until Labor Day itself. I'm off football for the first couple weeks. My first game is Labor Day. I'm doing boys soccer for TV.
And what? Yeah, well, that's the second game. That's the second weekend of the season. Right?
Yeah.
So you have boys soccer on Labor Day.
I do. That'll be game number 1 for me of the fall.
Okay. When's your first football game?
I want to say later in September. Can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I want to say the September 13th or 20th, somewhere in that range.
Okay, great.
Then I'll have 2 Bucknell games mixed in, 2 Bucknell women's soccer games mixed in there too, on
great.
ESPN Plus.
Good for you. That's great.
Yeah. Plus all the PA announcing coming up too with Bucknell football.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah, it starts up for me in a couple weeks.
Nah, I'm thrilled for you. That's great. That'll work out really well. They're fortunate to have you.
Well, thank you.
Boy, it sure would be great though if you got that Shikellamy play-by-play job. All right, but that's okay. That's.
You, sir, are my hero.
Did that slip out?
I won't tell if you won't tell.
I mean, that way somebody could just concentrate on sales. Don't you think that's important?
Well, he did tell me we will not be hearing from him, at least for the first few weeks, being on the weekly podcast, the weekly roundtable, because he has a lot of stuff going on. So it'll be the chief. We will be graciously given the chief for the first few weeks for the roundtable.
So he's going to the beach?
Oh, my almighty!
Oh, man. Ah. Well, okay. How many weeks won't he be able to do this?
He just said for the first few weeks, at least.
Could you give me a number? I need to plan my vacation. Like, when's the first time he's available? It'll be this date. I'm off that day.
F-O-U-L-E-D, that spells
Well, the Eagles play the Patriots tomorrow. Now, they've gone through the practices against each other, which for the coaching staff, that's invaluable in terms of their evaluation of what they need to do. Now, what's interesting about Jalen Hurts was the phrasing. Did you hear the phrasing about Hurts? They didn't say he performed really well. They said he was the best performing of the quarterbacks. I found the phrasing to be very interesting. They didn't say he was great, or he really performed well. They basically said that of all the quarterbacks, he performed the best. Well, what does that mean?
That makes me wonder slightly, but I wonder if it was just a coincidence. Because the reports that I've been hearing are that he's really, really getting well liked in the locker room, and he's really got the locker room in his grasp, and the guys are really just buying into what he does. So
adorable. How is he performing?
Apparently, everyone likes what he's doing on and off the field. So,
I mean, he's always been great in the locker room. My goodness, there is nobody I can think of that at Alabama. He loses his job to Tua Tagovailoa, okay? He stays low, keeps about his business. And in the SEC championship game against Georgia, he steps in when they needed him and was brilliant.
Yeah, it was incredibly impressive. That was actually, to me, one of the most incredibly impressive performances you're going to see in that national championship game ever.
That's why. Well, that was the SEC title game.
Or SEC title game, excuse me. Yeah.
Right. But that. You win everybody over. He was great in the locker room the whole time. But this is the National Football League, okay? It's not about winning, Mr. Congeniality. Okay.
But I thought he looked sharp last week, though, against the Steelers. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, I think he's off to a good start, but at the same time, I just don't know what he's going to look like yet. It is an unknown mystery.
What kind of job did he do evading T.J. Watt last week?
Fair.
Watt didn't play. All right, so...
No, that's fair. And I would like to see him play more than 2 series tomorrow, but we'll see how things go, I'm guessing. Because if they go well, I think Nick Sirianni's going to pull him.
The only reason... that I would play him a little bit more. It's just so he is more comfortable in the game with the system. But the practices are I'm talking about the practices head-to-head with the Patriots. Probably give them enough in that regard.
That's true.
The preseason game is just an add-on. Now, for the fans, it's not like you're sitting there watching video of the practices. But for the coaching staff, those practices probably gave them a pretty good feel of where he is on grasp of system, and the wideouts on how they are with grasp of system, and the running backs on how they are with grasp with system, and so forth. The practices probably did that when they faced the Patriots. The preseason game is just an add-on and probably is more about who gets roster spots 35 to 53. So, interesting. We'll take a break. Matt defending his guy right to the end.
That's right.
What was that athletic quarterback number again?
30. But then again, they had Ben Roethlisberger at 16, so, I'd use this with a grain of salt now.
I think you're a hater. Back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Forsyth, Trevorton, Middleburg, New Berlin, Mifflinburg, Hartleton. Lewisburg has some rain, not as heavy as maybe some other areas. I think I mentioned Trevorton's got heavy rain right now. So just be careful as you go through. Laurelton. Forest Hill has a lot of rain right now, and Snydertown's about to get heavy rain, as will Elysburg. And then Shamokin, you're about to get hit with some heavier rain coming up, and then Mount Carmel after that. So just be careful, okay, as you're going through. You see an area of water on the road, and it's running across the road, maybe you ought to turn around. You're like, oh, I got to get some. Nah, you don't want to go into something you're not sure about. And, of course, we've got a lot of lightning around the area, too. A lot of lightning, which has been a big issue. A lot of lightning near Shamokin right now. Sunbury, approaching Bloomsburg. Lewisburg's got a lot of lightning right now. Sunbury does. There's been some down by Selinsgrove, too. West Milton is a lot. Just went through Cowan, Vicksburg. Potts Grove is getting hit with lightning. I mentioned Snydertown. I mentioned Elysburg is getting hit pretty good with some lightning strikes right now. So I just, just want to at least point that out. I mean, obviously, if, it sounds like I'm on the Weather Channel here, but, 1 in 4 meteorologists happens to be a Penn State graduate anyway. So I thought we just care about you, okay? And it's part of the job of the radio station is that we need to spend all of our time caring about you, whether it's giving you an interview like Mike Lange's, because we care about you. We think it's something you're going to enjoy and so forth. When it comes to news and information, you got to make sure you have it. So I know I'm taking over the job of the weather team here right now, but they're not here, so it's me. Like I said, we had a tornado touchdown here about 10 miles south of here. I think it flying through here. It's interesting when it came through here, like the cell, because the tornado had already touched down. When the cell itself then came through, we didn't have tornadic activity when it came through here, obviously. But the rain was coming straight down at a 90 degrees, right? So it's boom. Perpendicular. Well, then it comes, all of a sudden, boom, there's the wind, boom, for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then when it went. That was it. Calmed down right away. So we thought I would at least mention that. Matt will have more details. We got the news coming up. And he'll get you up to date on all that and more. Tomorrow, Micah Shrewsbury on the show. Penn State's new head basketball coach. We're going to talk about the Coaches versus Cancer tournament, which is next week. going to be next Friday, the 27th, at the Penn State golf courses. No captains this year, which are, so it's just foursomes this year. I mean, the goal for them is just to make sure they play the tournament and get it in. So we'll talk to Micah about that tomorrow as well. And then Glenn Macnow tomorrow and the Eagles. And Jerry Dulac tomorrow on the Steelers. We've got a lot going on. Can we fit all these people in?
We're going to do it tomorrow. Now, Jerry, we try to get Jerry for Friday, but he's actually bringing his daughter back to Penn State on Friday,
good.
So we're going to do it tomorrow instead to preview Saturday's game with the Lions.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And Glenn's going to preview the Patriots and Eagles and talk about the 30th ranked quarterback of the Athletic.
Fouled. That spells fouled.
Let me look here and see. How many teams are in the NFL? Get round number. No. Not a good question.
No. I think we all know the answer to that, and we'll just let that go.
He's only had 4 starts in his career. That's one of the reasons why he's down that low.
I know, yeah.
But again, I'll go to the other part, though. The NFL is a league of accuracy, especially with the speed that is on the field. If you ever go to an NFL game, watch special teams, and you know what you see on special teams? Everybody can run. Everybody can run. That's the league. There's so much speed in the league. That's why there's such a premium placed on accuracy for quarterbacks in the league. And that's why with Jalen Hurts, that is the issue. The premium is on accuracy. Can he be consistently accurate? You're not going to be accurate on every play, but can you be consistently accurate on plays where you're not only just getting it into a window, but are you then leading them into something instead of playing station-to-station football? Micah tomorrow, Glenn tomorrow, Jerry tomorrow. Our thanks to Mike Lange today.